Go ahead.
Explain sexist bad, racist bad, misogynist bad, rapist bad, but feminist good, sus. Also, base hunter, Dota, Warcraft song.
But all those things
I'm
are
not sure what
bad
that
except
is.
for feminism. So I don't understand. That's like
that
being
does
racist is bad.
That does bring us back to the earlier conversation when I was describing the definitions of feminism, and I gave my charitable definition. I said it's women's advocacy, and then I gave my true definition, which is women's advocacy, and then baked in anti-male rhetoric, misandry, man hatred, etc.
Yeah.
You're like, I think both of you were like, well, who hurt you, Brian? Hold on.
Okay.
Hold on, let me just finish. You're like, who hurt you? And then you said something in essence, why do you care so much about anti-male rhetoric? I'm trying to, let me ask you a question. Do you think anti-female rhetoric is good or bad?
I think it's bad.
Okay, so is anti-male rhetoric bad?
I didn't give you my definition
answer
of
my
feminism.
question.
I
Hold
think
on,
it's
answer
bad as well. I'm not a man hater. I've never said anything about hating men or being like, I think I'm a feminist because I want to be equal to a man, because in my society I have never been equal to a man.
You are equal.
No,
You're equal.
men do not see us as like equal figures. Like,
Do you see men as equal? Do you think
With women?
Do you
Yes.
think women are superior to men?
no, I
Really?
think we're equal. That's why when you were saying your
Yeah, I don't-
definition, I'm like, what are you talking about? That's not my definition of feminism. And you've
Well,
never asked me what my definition
Okay,
was. You
what's your
just
definition?
assumed. I just said it.
I was
that
giving
we
you
are,
I was giving you my definition.
okay, yeah, but you just think that that's what, all women, this is what feminism is to everyone.
is.
No, because I'm literally telling you that I am not a man hater. I do not hate men. I don't, I think
Let's
I'm a
test it out.
feminism because I want to be equal to a man. That's what feminism is. It's
you-
like speaking up for women, womanhood,
Okay.
looking out for women. That's feminism. Like standing up for and being a voice.
Do you believe that there's a patriarchy? Do we have a patriarchal structure?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
And do we
100%.
need to dismantle the patriarchy?
I think it's getting better. I think there are some systemic things still left over. When I talk about feminism, I'm critical of patriarchy. It isn't necessarily individual men, because I know a lot of good men in my life that I love
Same.
and care about.
Same.
But I do think sometimes there's bigger. I think it's getting better, though, especially here in the U.S. I actually found a statistic that talked about men and women's pay gap, and actually, it's I think 80% right now for men and women in the U.S. But for 24 to, I believe, or no, it was
Erroneous.
Let me look up this. I did look it up, but either way, for younger people, it's even smaller. It's 95%. So it's getting better. So
hold on. The pay gap is very nuanced. There's the controlled pay gap, the uncontrolled pay gap. When you address or when you factor in hours worked, type of profession, geography, willingness to work overtime, willingness to work hazard pay, willingness to relocate. These are almost all things that there's a gap for in terms of men. Men work more hours. Men are more likely to work overtime. Men work more dangerous jobs. When men go into industries that pay more. So if you actually control, there is no wage gap.
there are a lot of women that work a lot of long hours jobs.
Yeah.
I mean, my
Nurses.
job, I work probably about 60 to 70 hours a week on a bad week. And then
Okay.
nurses work a fair amount of hours. I have
80
a
to
lot of
100.
nurses.
Okay, so are you saying that I'm lying about the statistics? So the statistic, this isn't fake, this isn't up for dispute.
What website
Hold on.
did you get yours
Hold
from?
on.
Because I got mine from a different
work,
website.
Hold on. Here's the two stats I'm going to debate you on. Men work more hours than women, and men work more overtime than women. Do you dispute these two facts?
I do. I think it depends on the profession. It's more nuanced.
Hold on. Yes, I agree. There is one individual woman who we can. Oh my God! I can't believe I have to get into the weeds like this. There's one individual woman I can find in the United States that works more than one individual man that I can find in the United States. Oh my God. We're talking about generalities here. Generally speaking, men work more than women. They work longer hours. This is not up for dispute. I think it's the Bureau of Labor Statistics releases robust information on this. Yes, is there a woman out there who works more than some dude? Yes. But if we're looking across the board, on average, men work more hours than women.
Once again, I think it's down to the profession.
Across all professions. There's not one, I don't even understand that, but across all professions, men work more hours.
Even for teaching, because that's majority women, and if you ask a teacher...
Even if it was true...
A lot of teachers do a lot of stuff outside the classroom.
Even if it was true that if we're doing a per capita assessment, because there's more women who are teachers, if we were looking at the average of men versus women in this regard, who knows, even if we granted it, that wouldn't diminish any of the other industries where men overwhelmingly, like, okay, fine, let's say that when it comes to teachers, in that particular field, women work more than the men do. Okay, well, all the other fields, men also work more hours. That would outweigh and dwarf the teacher contribution to this component. Are you just going to fake news this and be like, no, women work more hours than men?
Again, I think it depends on the type of job. So
Okay, be specific then.
Okay, so like when I said teaching, it's because the majority of teachers are women. So
okay, but then you would have to do like a per capita assessment. So are you saying that, like, if 90% of teachers are women and 10% are men, that's probably not the numbers, I'm just pulling it out. You're saying, well, we have to add up all the extra... Well, hold on.
I'm just saying...
Wait, hold on. That doesn't even make sense.
I'm bringing up professions that work a lot of hours. You think only men only work in jobs that work a lot of hours, but there are some professions that women are more women-dominated that also work a lot of hours.
I suppose it's conceivable in some sector that... in some specific sector that women work more hours than men on average. It's possible. I'm not even sure if that's the case, because across the board, for the average to actually be true, you would suspect what's most likely that across all sectors, men work more hours than women. Even if your point was true, do you think it defeats my point?
Not necessarily. So.
Okay, so are we arguing that women work more than men?
No, but I also don't think that men always work more than women. So
that wouldn't disprove the central argument. I've already granted you that yes, it's possible that there are 1, 100, 1,000, 100,000 women out there that do work more hours than some men. But I don't even know how to explain this to make it coherent to you. On average, men work more hours than women. Does that make sense?
Yes. But there's also another nuance to it, which is if women aren't working as more hours, there's a lot of women who have to leave work early or not work as many hours to take care of kids. So.
Okay.
That does contribute to that, especially if you're working a career, you stop your career to have a kid, then you go back later, you're not going to be making as much as you would if you just never left your job.
Well, that's why a company will hire a man over a woman.
That's what I'm saying.
Because they factor in
babies and kids. Yeah,
Maternity
it's true.
leave.
I've literally had talks with women about this that haven't got job positions where they're way more qualified than men, but a lot of things are like associated with
I'm
hiring.
just curious though, like let's say your business is brutal and cutthroat. Let's say you're a small business and it's your money on the line. Your money. You run a business. Do you run the business? Do you own the business?
Oh, no.
You work
I
for
work
somebody,
for someone,
right?
So
it's like these small businesses, oftentimes sometimes the owners can reap quite substantially in terms of their income, but a lot of times they're fucking hustling. You know, they're trying to do everything they can to stay afloat. And do you think, like, you know, it's a good business move to hire a woman who's like going to get pregnant in 3 months? Like, think about it from your perspective as a business owner. Well, I know you're not a business owner, but if you were a business owner and you're like, shit, okay, fuck, I got to fill this position. And I don't want to have to spend 3 months having to train somebody new. And like, otherwise I go out of business and my family fucking starves. Do you think it's a good business move? Like, I know there's a bunch of legal protections in
I
place.
was about to say, it gets to be a gray area with the American with Disabilities Act.
Well, hold on. Pregnancy is not a disability.
It's considered a disability.
I mean, I think
not-
someone's
no.
sued
no,
under that
when
before,
going on
so-
leave, it's
Yes,
like,
there's maternity leave, but it's not
equal
under.
opportunity.
It's not
Yeah.
a disability. But like, pragmatically speaking, if you're a business owner, you know, maybe these major corporations have leeway to, like, you know, whatever, hire a pregnant woman. They've got 40,000 employees. Who gives a fuck? You've got a business with 10, 20 employees, and you're fucking.
I think it depends on the type of business and also your employee, because if they're a good employee and you'll know they'll come back, I think they will. I think, if granted, I don't want children biologically, but if I got pregnant, people recognize me at my job and they come to trust me, and my boss likes me as an employee, I think he'd want to hire me back because I'll stay put and I'm consistent.
Right. Look, I'm not saying that it's always going to manifest itself that companies don't want to hire women, but I'm just looking at it pragmatically. It's like, I don't know, if you have a magic 8-ball and you can tell the future or whatever, and it's like, okay, I can hire this person who I'm going to have to spend all these resources and money training them, and then within 3 months they're going to leave the job, and then I'm like kind of fucked. Like, wouldn't it almost make sense for a business to prioritize hiring somebody where that's not a risk?
I guess that is the problem, and that's why, for example, me, though it's not one of the many reasons, I won't have a child biologically, because I don't want to not get behind in my career, and I know I'd much rather be a funeral director and embalmer than a mother.
But even then, even granting this situation where companies might have hesitation of hiring women, we clearly don't see it. Women are not out destitute in the streets, incapable of ever securing a job. Women completely, entirely participate in the labor force, in the workforce. Corporations are more than happy to hire women. This idea that there's rampant sexism and women aren't getting hired because maybe they'll get pregnant is just completely ludicrous. Women are absolutely getting hired. There's a bunch of affirmative action. Corporations are predominated by, their HR departments, predominated by women. Women are hiring mostly women. Women have bias towards women. So, I don't know. It's kind of ridiculous. However, I don't know. Look, oh man, we're getting in the weeds here. The fucking wage gap. I wanted to get back to this original claim, which was when I was like, gave you the definition of feminism, you had an issue with me saying that anti-male rhetoric and misandry is bad. Why?
I don't have an issue with that being...
You did. Both of you did. Because
No.
when I brought it up, you're like, who hurt
Well, no,
you,
I
Brian?
am-
Why do you care?
I actually am curious why you feel the way you do. I'm always interested in people who I don't necessarily agree with why, because I like to explain why I feel the way I do.
What
So,
do you disagree with? Like, what's there to disagree with about being against anti-male rhetoric? What's there to disagree on?
I'm not disagreeing with you on that, but like I said before in my criticism when I initially sent you that first message, sometimes there just seems to be some and actually it took me a while to remember the specific thing from the episode, but there seems to be kind of some anti-feminist attitude.
What would be wrong with that?
Like bowing. Like you're
my God.
asked
Hold
you
on,
the
wait, hold on,
question
guys.
about bowing. Like, I don't even know what hypothetical situation I'd be in. It just seemed like it was a weird humiliation thing. So
Not humiliation at all. It's a demonstration. It's a temperature check for if a woman can actually be submissive. And I would argue that the demands that women place on men are orders of magnitude greater than simply a benign, effortless, unless she's severely disabled, any woman can do a bow. So this idea that it's a big ask when women want men to pay for first dates, when women want men to be protectors, when women want men to open car doors, when women want men to observe the sidewalk rule, which would seem to suggest that the woman wants the man to basically be a meat shield for her in the event that a car comes barreling down the street and fucking, he can push her out of the way and he can fucking die on the first date when she's got 10 sugar daddies and she's fucking 3 other dudes, and you want some fucking sucker to die for you on the first date. I'm good. The bow is completely reasonable.
I don't think that that is reasonable. And
what's the bow?
Yeah, and not only that.
Do you think it's unreasonable for women to expect men to pay on first dates?
I do.
I guess you didn't circle that, but you do acknowledge though that I want to say the majority of women want men to pay on first dates, even liberal women.
I do think that's rather hypocritical, and I don't expect to have to be paid for on the first date.
The world isn't built of women like you. So I'm operating on generalities here. I think in general, women have an expectation that men should pay on first dates, right? I think maybe it's definitely not all women, but I want to say it's a majority. That would mean 51% or more. I think that's completely, I don't know if there's statistics on that. I think it's very realistic probability. If men should pay on first dates, that means, okay, how do they pay for it? Well, they have to work. So when a girl says a man should pay on the first date, if that first date is $100 to pay for the first date and he makes $20 an hour, the man has to work 5 hours to take a woman on a date. A bow is that.
Who's
no
expecting
effort.
$100 on the first date?
Hold on.
I'm fine with coffee dates.
If I bring a girl to fucking Chili's and we get an appetizer, we get drinks, we get a main course, and we get a dessert, and then the tip, I'm going to spend $100 at Chili's.
That's a
if
lot
you
of
can't
food
afford
for a
to have
date.
a woman, then maybe you should get your money up, not
But
your funny
look,
up.
there are places you can go that are going to be less than $100. I don't think it's it's some insane spend in 2025 for a guy to spend $100 in total on a date.
I think it's to each their own.
And some girls here are going to say,
to each their
only
own.
100?
No, to each their own.
No,
Like
I disagree.
If you can only afford to pay for the Honda because you have Honda money, then don't go for the Mercedes because you're literally going to get in debt.
Wait, shouldn't that apply to the women? Like if you're if you're
Tell
a
me.
Ford Pinto, shouldn't you just not want a guy who makes $10 million a year?
Exactly.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I
point.
said that I'm going to have that money.
But
too.
are you the Lamborghini? Are you the Ferrari?
Yes.
Are you? Wait, hold on. Let's do this.
Yes.
McLaren. I don't know.
Maserati.
You're more
Porsche.
like Porsche.
Porsche is cool.
Okay, Ferrari, Lamborghini,
Bugatti,
Porsche. Or you know what?
Aston Martin.
Carrera GT. Is that even a fucking car?
Yes.
Camara or Carrera?
It's Carrera.
Okay, well, I don't know. Whatever. Wait, hold on. Hold on. I'm not going to let you guys keep escaping, though. When I gave my definition of feminism, and I said my true definition of feminism is women's advocacy, and then baked in anti-male rhetoric, misandry, you guys were like, well, why do you care, Brian?
Well, because it sounded like you were talking from some place of so hatred. Like you're getting red. Like I'm like, oh, he's hot. Like this is a topic that really
I'm against
really gets to him.
Oh.
So I wanted to know why. Like what?
I don't know. If you hear somebody say a racist slur, would that get to you?
Well, I guess I can't speak for.
Wait, what's that?
They don't deserve the racist slur.
And men don't deserve bigotry.
I'm not, but like if the women are entitled to their opinions, if women think these things are meant, like nobody's saying anything about
Hold
you,
on.
so why does it matter?
Wait. Let's explore that.
Like
Women,
these are
I
our
love it.
opinions,
I love it. Women are entitled to their opinions.
and you are too.
Well, hold on.
And-
what opinions are we talking about? So, for example, is it a woman's opinion that she could say men are trash? Is she entitled to that opinion?
I think anybody's
Yes.
entitled to any opinion.
Do you think men are trash?
I don't.
Do you think men are trash? Really? I thought the majority of men
I
are
think
creepy
the majority
weirdos.
of them are trash, but there's like a
What?
good
No,
selective
we said
group.
the majority
that-
He's
of
upset
creeps
because you guys are
are-
making generalizations. He's not a murderer, a pedophile, any of that, but yet he's still treated differently because of people I guess, like you, that assume automatically that
I'm not
the
assuming.
general population of men
And I never
bad,
argued that.
are
You said
creeps.
she said the
I
majority?
didn't. I'm saying I didn't.
Okay, well,
I
know.
don't think.
I don't think
know you,
all
and I
men
don't
are
think you're
trash.
weird.
I never. That was never my argument.
I never
Well,
said
I don't
that.
even hold on. What you met me, so you don't think I'm weird. You probably do think I'm weird, but you don't want to say it. Whatever, that's fine. I'm still going to come to the defense of the broad population of just normal men who also get lumped into this like this bigotry and bias against them. So whether your determination of me is kind of irrelevant here, I'm broadly against anti-male rhetoric and misandry. So why it matters to me, you say, well, if I heard something racist, you would be, or you heard something racist, you would be against it. If I hear something sexist against men, I'm against it.
Yeah.
I
Okay. Because
guess
you're
I
a
was
man and it
just-
hurts your feelings too. I get it.
What, hold on. I don't know if it hurts. I don't know if hurting my feelings.
It is because that's what.
But is that you're doing it in sort of this mocking way?
No,
like,
I'm-
Oh, look at the poor baby.
No,
His
I guess
feelings are hurt.
No,
That's
I
not
didn't
my
mean
point at
like
all.
that. So I can't speak for
That's-
anyone else, but when I try to talk to someone I disagree with, I try to understand why they feel a certain way. And so the reasons, because I grew up in Indiana, I've always lived in Indiana, and I grew up in a rural farming community. You know, it's not like yas, feminist, girl boss area. It never was. But the reason I started getting into feminism and learning about it, and it was long before college, before someone says, oh, like college indoctrinated you, was because I had some people treat me unfairly when I was growing up because I was a woman, and then listening to the stories of like my mother and grandmother and some of the other women in my life, hearing them, it made me passionate because I just want a better world for, well, everyone, but it just, some of the things that people I've loved face, I just don't want them to have to go through that again, or any future people.
That's
Okay, but-
totally fair.
And so I just wanted to know, maybe someone had been treated you unfairly for who you are. I wondered if that's what motivated you.
Yeah.
No. It has nothing to do with like specific like feminists who have treated me poorly. I am a person who has faculties of logic and reason and rationality, and therefore I can look at what feminism is and the ideology, and trust me, there's plenty of subject matter there for that warrants criticism. There's plenty in the feminist movement, in the ideology itself, baked in that warrants criticism.
And I agree.
I agree too.
Well, okay. But when I
But-
gave you my definition of what feminist
I
is,
said I didn't agree. That's not my definition.
well,
That's
you didn't
not
agree
how
with it.
I
No,
handle
well,
things.
it's not just that. When I said that the feminist movement is anti-male rhetoric, misandrist, et cetera, you're well. Who hurt you, Brian?
Because I don't
Who
agree to
hurt
that. Because
you?
that's not my definition of feminism. I'm like,
Well,
like, why
that's-
is this like the thought
I love
process?
it because that's what I wanted to get into. The reason I was asking you before about if you believe in the patriarchy, which you do, right? You believe in the patriarchy. That's like the core tenet of feminism. That in and of itself bakes in and perpetuates this idea. Well, do you think women are oppressed?
Yes, but I
think
think
they
it
can be.
varies.
I think they can be.
I think
Are they broadly oppressed
More
generally?
than men.
What's that?
More than men.
More than men. So,
In what
but they are
ways?
oppressed. Are they oppressed?
I think they can be. I don't think
They-
all women are oppressed. No.
What
The
about just in the
United
United
States?
States?
Okay.
Let's talk about the U.S. Are women oppressed?
In some ways, but I think
In
For the most part,
whole society.
For the most part, no.
no.
Wait, what's that?
I think our whole society is oppressed.
no, I agree with that too.
You know, so I think it's like
That
men
part.
and women,
Maybe in
and
different ways.
yeah, there's different ways, but I think it's the same. Honestly, I think men and women are equally oppressed.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's an
In the
argument,
United States of America.
There's an argument to be made that really there would be like a oppression based on class, which would
Yes.
transcend race. It transcends sex. It transcends all this stuff. But and this isn't necessarily something that I'm
Intersectionality.
forwarding. It's not. But people would argue that all this racism shit, the gender war, race war stuff, it's very conveniently distracting to distract us from the ultimate form of warfare that's going on, which would be related to class. Some people would forward that argument. I don't know if I would necessarily buy into it. but they're if it is true, the obscenely wealthy are very happy to keep us all distracted and fighting amongst each other by focusing on race and blah, blah, blah. So there can never be class solidarity because the men are fighting the women are fighting the men, the whites are fighting the blacks are all this stuff, very distracted by this sort of shit that never enables a sort of movement to actually get real shit done. But I digress. The patriarchy. Okay. Do you think men are oppressors?
In some ways, once again, I think it's situational.
Well,
nuance.
That's not helpful, though. In some ways, they're how so?
Well, I believe there are men, and there are women, too, that kind of will promote sexist ideas or just systemic sexism. And sometimes I don't think people realize it. Sometimes they do. And I do think women are as capable of doing that as men.
Okay. Well, I mean, I would just say, though, if you buy into this idea of patriarchy, which I don't think is a very nuanced way of looking at the infinitely complex way that societies are structured, to just say men bad, women
bad,
oppressed, men oppressor.
That's never come out of
really
my mouth.
complicated. Society is structured in a very complicated way to just put all the blame on men is kind of like ridiculous. That is the patriarchy theory. It's this apex fallacy also that we were talking about before, where very, very small proportion of people are in power, even if it is the case that small proportion of people is men. How could you then hold 4 billion people, like this sort of collective guilt? Like, oh, well, these 10 men at the top have created the rules in society or whatever bullshit. Therefore, all men bad. Majority of men bad. Like, it's a really weird way to look at society. From my perspective, I actually think if we're looking at negative life outcomes, I think while it is true that you have a really small proportion of men who have that corner office, who are the CEO, who are in the executive positions, who can have more power politically speaking, although of course I would just argue that women are women are more represented in the voter base. So women themselves are voting the men in. So it's like,
that's what I talk about, internalized sexism.
Well, I don't know about that, but women do have a say as it relates to politics. You literally vote these men in. But this is a really small proportion of men. What proportion of men have political power? Really, really small proportion of men. What proportion of men are CEOs or high-powered executives? Really, really small proportion of men. The average man has no more say, no more power than their female counterparts, which is like 99% of people, 99% of men have no more say than do women. It's just true. And I would then point to, for looking at the negative life outcomes, the majority of negative life outcomes are disproportionately represented by men. Men are more likely to be victims of violent crime. Men are more likely to be murdered. Men are more likely to be incarcerated. Men are more likely to be unalived by police. Men are more likely, all these things. Men are more likely to be
they're
homeless.
out here being crazy.
But see, you got to be careful with that, because then it opens up this door to generalization, because people will make this argument about, well, hold on, it's really black men are more likely to be in prison. That's due to racism, right? You'll say that, right? But then when it comes to men being more likely to go to prison, you'll say, well, that's their choice. They make that choice. If you're going to say that the criminal element in men is due to them being men, because you're citing to, well, there's more men in prison, you gotta be careful, because then it opens the door to racism, which would say that there's more black people in prison because of some innate characteristic of black people, which I reject, to be clear.
I don't think it's the same at all.
Well, you can draw these similar comparisons. If you're saying, I'm looking at crime statistics, and more men commit these crimes, men bad. Then if it's like, well, hold on, more black people commit these crimes than white people. it opens the door. If you open the door to men bad because they commit more crimes, you then open the door to this racial group bad because they commit more crimes. I reject both. I reject both.
No, I agree with you on that. Once again, that's why I'm all about nuance over really big generalizations.
Okay.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I
Yeah.
can see the correlation.
Just saying.
But I've never said any of those statements. So I'm still like, that has nothing to do with my views of feminism. Like, I don't think men bad. So, yeah.
I just
mean-
think it's more likely.
But as it relates to patriarchy, even granting that, the vast majority of the people at the top are men, we also have to say that the vast majority of the people at the bottom are men. That's the homelessness, men who commit suicide, victims of war, all this stuff, prisoners, et cetera, et cetera.
But who started the war? Men. Who sent them to war? Men.
Do you think like a 19-year-old boy in Kentucky had anything to do in World War II, World War I with being sent to war?
Yes, but
What
the
does a
people who are
19
sending them to war are men.
Yeah, but how does that change? Like the
His
19-year-old
own
who's
people are
actually in
doing
war.
him
It's
dirty.
political
like,
leaders.
I agree.
Exactly.
No,
Also-
once again, that's why I
And
like the
most
concept.
of them are men. Like,
But that's not
Oh, no, you're
fair
okay.
to generalize all men just because the political leaders
No, I
happen to be
know.
men.
but like, I'm literally looking at the entire world. There's no women out here saying,
So
let's go to war.
Does your empathy have a gender filter?
Honestly, no.
But I'm confused. Then why bring up this idea that, well, it's terrible that 19-year-old boys who don't want to go to war get sent to war and get killed,
That
or
is horrible.
right? But why the need to say but? Why the need to say, well, it's the men who send them to war? Like, why?
Because it's literally,
It's a red herring, though.
it's a butterfly effect
What
of
does
men.
it have to do with that, though? What does that 19-year-old have to do with
It doesn't.
the fact
I'm not
that his
talking about a
political leader
19-year-old.
sent him and his other
Has
peers
nothing.
to
I'm
war?
saying men are
How
literally
is that his
making
But-
other
but-
men victims of men. Like,
Hold on, but the perpetrator, by the way, mind you, a war can sometimes be a defensive war. So maybe the leaders of the nation who happen to be men are like, well, shit, we're getting invaded. Sorry, guy. Like, we don't want to be
and
doing this,
who's
but we have
invading
to.
them? Another country ran by a man.
Not always the case. I have a couple things on this.
It's usually the case.
Well, look, historically, if we look at queens, for example, we look at female monarchs, we actually find that queens were much more likely to wage war than kings. So this idea that,
talking
like,
about today.
even today, women are heads of state. Yes, absolutely, they would be engaged in war. It would absolutely happen. This idea that if women were all world leaders, everything would be peaceful. I don't know about you guys. I've seen women fucking brutal towards each other. Women can be fucking brutal towards each other. Women can be violent towards each other. This idea that women are completely peaceable people
No one
is
said
No
ridiculous.
one said that. No one said that.
Yeah, but this idea that, like, oh, well, if we, I'm not making the case that women would be more prone to war, although there is some historical precedent for when women did have power, they were actually more
Same
likely to
with
wage
men.
war. Well, not the same with men.
Yes. And
Look at the world today.
Well, yeah, there's more men in power, so it would proceed that, yes, like, but if you do like a per capita assessment, when women were monarchs, they were more likely to go to war. When women were queens, leaders, empresses,
but
whatever.
did they?
Yes.
How many? Let's. I don't know the statistics.
Nick,
I've,
Google
like,
the queens more likely to go to war than men. There has been historical studies done on this specific thing. But I guess my question to you is, when I bring up male disadvantage and you say, well, who set that system up? Does that imply that men deserve the disadvantage?
No.
Do men deserve the disadvantage?
No. I never said that to begin with in this whole podcast. Like, I'm not a man hater. I'm just looking at the majority. The majority of all of these things are men. Like, it just is what it is.
But you're shifting the discussion away from the actual concern about male disadvantage to either current day or historical blame towards men. So it's like, and it's just this red herring. It's like, okay, well, you're saying men collectively are to blame, which isn't true. It's not true. It's small portion of men in power who make these decisions.
This is why I like the concept of intersectionality, because there's a lot more layers. And yeah, someone who's privileged in one thing may not be privileged in something else. And I do think for everyone, no matter whatever system's oppressing them, we should try to dismantle that.
Yes,
Also,
agreed.
if men like built this system, then clearly, even if it's true, wouldn't it be a system that hates its own architects?
It does.
Right, but so this idea that patriarchy was built for the benefit of men, even if we grant this is how society is structured.
I think kind of going with the intersectionality thing again.
Okay.
So the men oppressing the other men, wealthy men, I think kind of, especially here in the U.S., kind of lead men that they're oppressing with a carrot on the string by saying, well, if you do this and this and this and you act this way, you'll be like me one day and you'll have all the money and power you want, but they never do. It just is always out of their grasp. And that's how they keep people under their thumb.
I guess when I point out how men are disadvantaged or suffering, and you guys say, well, who set that system up? It sounds a lot like the suffering is invalid if the wrong people experience it.
That's not true.
I mean, that's kind of what she's saying. That's how I'm interpreting it.
I don't have to agree with that, so.
Okay. But I don't understand. So if a group historically set up a system, does that mean that individual members today can't point out how it's harmful?
You can.
You can.
Like, what about, could we say the same about women criticizing systems built by women?
Yes. I mean,
Yeah.
the feminism movement has criticisms within itself frequently. And there's, like any group of people, no matter what it is, there's splinters.
Yeah.
Because people have gotten unhappy about something and they've split off and done their own thing. That's just people.
Okay. But like, for example, there are tribes in Africa that do FGM, female genital mutilation. And what they've actually found is that this is a cultural artifact. I don't know if that's the right wording. It's a cultural practice that it's not upheld by the men. The female genital mutilation is actually upheld by the women in these societies. And I don't know if it's because they're like, I suffered, so you have to suffer too. I think that that's oftentimes a thing that we see all the time. But I wouldn't, like, if a woman had her genitals mutilated, I wouldn't then say, well, hold on, it's the women in your culture who are allowing this practice to continue. I'd be like, no, this is terrible.